Okay, you and I need to sing a song together, okay?
You and me?
Yeah, just something so we can like just keep it on the same pace, right? Name a song. Cotton Eye Joe.
You serious?
Where did you come from? Where did you go?
Did you go?
Where
Where did
did
you
you come
come?
from? Cotton Eye Joe.
Cotton Eye Joe.
Okay,
But
that won't work because you were all over the place.
you were all over the place, first of all.
Hello and welcome to episode 14 of Revolutionary Rhetoric Podcast.
Woo! Yeah, it's a Wednesday, boys and girls.
We're back.
Barely.
It's a Wednesday barely, or we're back barely?
Both.
Oh, okay. You may notice a fresh face with us here in this top left corner. That is my friend from Tucson, Arizona, Faye. Faye, say hello.
Hello.
Cool. Faye's going to join us today. As we promised last week, this is mostly just going to be an update on Israel-Palestine. I don't really have much news as far as like congressional domestic stuff. I feel like we've spent weeks upon weeks upon weeks doing domestic stuff. So I'm
weeks on weeks on weeks. No.
yeah, weeks on weeks on weeks. So I'm over it. There's been some Hunter Biden stuff. I guess he got held in contempt of Congress for like not coming before a deposition or something.
I think we're going to be talking about a lot of congressional stuff coming up here in the next few months to a year, considering it's an election year. So
Yeah, for sure.
I think we need to take time off from Congress and from elections and do something else for a second before we get back knees deep into it.
And I wanted to focus on Palestine in particular, because one, we promised it, and two, because we have Faye here, who feels very strongly about that subject, or at least that's been my impression of from your social media, which is not a public account. It's just what I see.
That's true. Yeah.
So Faye, let's get you introduced. How do you feel about all this communism nonsense? Let me back it up and ask the question: where do you stand? I guess like on a political spectrum in the most basic sense. Like,
Who are you?
What do you identify? I guess like as far as like politically.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if I had to like narrow it down, I would say like, I guess in simplest terms, yes, I would just say communist.
Yeah, you
I don't
wouldn't
want to get too into the weeds.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to go further than like you're a what's his name, a Titoist or a Maoist or whatever, like you know.
Hudgist.
Yeah.
Well,
what's
not
your
yet,
take on
anyway.
Enver Hoxha?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, not just yet. I mean, in terms of like my leftism, I think I'm still very early on in my journey, I would say.
Yeah, I remember back in the day, you and I had the Baby Leftist podcast, which was a lot of fun to do. But that
For you, maybe.
Well, no, it wasn't very fun for me. It was a pain in the ass for me. But it lasted 3 episodes. And I don't know how much I've told you about that kind of. I had that podcast, and like, it did fairly well as far as numbers went. Like our downloads were in 3 episodes we had like almost 1,000 downloads. I think
That's crazy, man.
Yeah, it like was doing well, and then we just stopped because
crazy.
It was too much work, dude. It was the amount of research and like writing I had to do for every episode. I had to read. So the basic premise of that podcast was to read. It was for baby leftists to be introduced to classic Marxist texts, right? So I would read a book, but then I would have to do all the historical and contextual research around the book, around the time it was written. So we started with so we did principles or scientific and utopian. Engels is socialism, scientific and utopian, right?
Yeah.
Read that book, broke it down, but to understand that book, you have to understand like Hegelian philosophy. So we had to like break that down, and then I was basically writing like theses every like other week on this shit, and I'm like, this is unsustainable, dude.
My dude is writing a PhD.
Yeah, I was gonna say Ty was lucky if I even read the original material.
Yeah, so that was the thing is we would both read this book and then we would talk about it. But what ended up happening every week was like I would read the book, do all the work, and Faye would just be like, "Oh, so then what happened?" And I'm like, "God damn it, dude."
Yeah, very true.
So it was a lot of fun, and like I learned a lot. But like it just we did 3 books. We did Communist Manifesto, Socialism, Utopian and Scientific, and we started State and Revolution. And I was just like, dude, because I was also in college. I was getting my teaching degree and like doing my student teaching and like working full time and doing that. And I was just like, dude,
Was this a weekly thing?
No, it was originally, I think, and then we ended up doing it every other week, and then we just started doing it whenever we had time. So it became, I think, like one. Well, I mean, like not like it became because we only did 3 episodes, but I think it was like every 3 weeks we got one out.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's unfortunate too because it's definitely something that people wanted,
It
certainly at the
it seemed like
time.
from the numbers, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think that was like a booming time for people. I think that was like a good wave of people who were starting to become radicalized, and
Yeah,
exploring like the leftist ideology for sure.
I agree. It was the right thing to do at the right time, and like had we been like
Hmm.
smarter about it, we could have really capitalized on it because it was like late 2020 or early 2021 when we were doing
Oh
this. I
yeah,
think
that's
it was
true.
like
Hmm.
peak. The people were flocking to leftism, and like we were putting these out, and like it showed in the numbers. Like I said, 3 episodes, and we had like 1,000 downloads, and
That's
like
crazy.
yeah,
Yeah.
but then it just became too much. I think both of us, our schedules just couldn't handle it. I wish we had had like the wherewithal to kind of build this then.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think it would have been better had we already had that base knowledge. If we weren't ourselves baby leftists,
Yeah, that's
it would
fair.
have been more sustainable for sure.
Yeah, because like we had to learn everything, and like we were making mistakes, we were saying wrong things, we were doing a lot of retractions and stuff, so it just became a whole lot of thing, a whole thing. So
Hmm.
like I'm much more confident just
Yes.
talking about communism now, just in general. So like I can just pick up a microphone and just be like, oh, here's what I know about Trotskyism or whatever. So like it's
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm that much more comfortable, but I at least am more confident in my own um like ideals or morals, you know. So,
sure, yeah, you know what you want and
It
what
takes
who you
time.
are. Yeah, it definitely
It
takes
definitely
time.
hmm.
takes time. It's like,
Yeah.
do I really believe that? And you're like, yeah, I believe
Well,
Yeah,
that.
but then like relating that back to theory, I don't do a lot of that, so.
yeah, I mean that's like the dialectical part, right? Like
Hmm.
the the historical contextualization and kind of taking what you know and then applying. I mean, taking what you do and who you are and then applying that back to theory. But then there's also taking theory and then applying that for how you move forward. So that kind of it's a two-way street, right? So like depending on how much you get out and volunteer in your community and like do whatever kind of outside praxis work. That's a whole other thing. Um, cool. So like what? I'm sorry. Do you have something to say? Go ahead.
No,
Oh, I thought you were
no, we're
intaking for a
chilling.
breath. So I was just gonna keep asking
I
you questions
yawned.
like what?
I said I yawned.
Oh, you
That's what
yawned.
it was. Yeah.
I was just gonna keep asking you a couple questions just to kind of get a little more information about you. What has been your experience with like political organizing, like leftist organizing, as far as like any kind of political party, any kind of like mutual action work, mutual aid or direct action, anything you've kind of like worked on in any capacity, right? And in anything really.
Yeah, I mean, as far as mutual aid goes, like I've participated in like, a food not bombs type organization, not for very long, admittedly. And then just like, I'm fortunate enough to, be able to like help folks out financially, um, periodically, so I feel like there's strength in that as well, if you're able. But I don't, as far as like political, like actual organizing, I don't have a lot of experience in that. I've definitely participated in um like the outcome, so protesting and marches and things like that.
Sure.
But never involved in the actual organization of it.
Right. How would you say? I mean, and I don't know. Do you know at those protests? Because I know you're out there quite a bit. Like, what does it appear to you at least as the makeup of those groups out there? I know DSA has a pretty large presence in Tucson. I don't know anything about CP USA in Tucson. I know the Phoenix CP USA is pretty strong, but I don't know about Tucson Communist Party.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not sure. I do know, a couple people who are involved in some of the organizing, like with the organizing we have a lot of cycling events, like cycling protests and things, especially right now for Palestine. But I don't know the makeup in terms of, yeah, like whether they're affiliated with any of those organizations at all. And
Right.
it's honestly the turnout is pretty small.
Oh, is it? Yeah. How are those protests in Tucson? Because I know Phoenix they get pretty fucking huge, but Phoenix is also a different beast compared to Tucson.
Yeah, so I mean, we've had some protests like down at like the state buildings, but and I haven't been able to make it to those just for time, scheduling, but the cycling ones that I've been to, they'll have like a good amount of cyclists that are on the ride, and then they generally will meet somewhere for people to like walk up and join. But still, even then, no more than 50 people that I've seen. unfortunately.
Oh, okay, 150 is not bad. That's such a Tucson thing to have your protest be cycling themed. Like that's
Yeah.
the most. If any of you have ever been to
They've been
Tucson,
doing a
Arizona,
lot though,
that
and I
tracks.
don't know if you saw the protest that they had at the mall, Tucson Mall, and some protesters got tackled and arrested as well.
By TPD,
So
Tucson Police.
I think that was one of the more successful, protests.
That's cool. Right on. Well, I mean,
Mhm.
that's not cool for them, obviously, but
Right.
I mean, it proves that they're out there, and it shows that they're out there kind of doing something.
So what happened to the right to protest?
Yeah.
Getting tackled by the police.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Well, cool. Do you have any like desire to get involved in any kind of? Not that I'm not trying out here to convert you to a CPUSA member, but do you have any kind of like
Right.
interest in getting involved with an organized group that's kind of out there doing something, whether that be CP, PSL, DSA?
Yeah, I
You.
mean, not to say that I don't have an interest in it. I think I'm doing what I have the bandwidth for currently.
Sure.
But I think if the opportunity opened itself up, I would certainly, want to be more involved.
Okay, that's cool. That's just if the time permits. I don't know. I really don't know anything about the Tucson CP, guys.
God, I've never even been to Tucson, so I couldn't tell you.
It's a cool city. I like Tucson.
Hot as fuck,
Yeah.
probably.
How are you feeling about Tucson? Are you still into it, Faye? Are you ever gonna move?
Yeah, I mean, I always thought I would move, but I think I'm pretty comfortable here for the foreseeable future. It has everything that I need, and I'm kind of the mind like try and fix where you are, right?
Sure.
Than rather
And I think
try to
Tucson is a
run away
very
from it.
like fixable city. I think that it's a very, for those of you anybody who don't know or haven't been to Tucson, it's a small college town, relatively smallish. I mean, it's in actual Tucson. I think it's still sub 1 million people, so it's a tiny town relative to Phoenix, or Seattle for that matter.
Seattle only has 500,000 people, 600,000 people.
For real?
The city of Seattle, the metropolitan area, has like 4 million from like Everett to Tacoma.
It just seems like the amount of parking that doesn't exist here. There's got to be more people than that. But the parking in Seattle is awful. But anyway, there's like not parking places, right? Like there's a Target, but the Target doesn't have a parking lot. You just have to go fuck yourself. You figure it out, I guess.
The
Parking
physical
garages.
space might be different. Tucson, the layout is like very spread
Yeah, it's
out.
like for so few people, it's like a 50 miles across or something. It's a massive city, but as far as land goes, but my point to that was like it is very, it's like a liberal arts town. It's a college town, very liberal, But I feel like it's the type of liberals that wouldn't be opposed to like black people in their city. It's like
Yeah.
they're like cool liberals, or
So
they're
progressive.
close. They're close liberals. They're progressives. They're so close to being pushed over the edge, in my limited experience. But I wasn't very like politically like awake. Oh, I wasn't politically woke when I lived in Tucson. I've lived in Phoenix for too long.
Their third eye was
Yeah.
closed, brother.
Yeah.
I think I would agree with you, though. I think that we have a lot of people who are, and certainly they grow closer every year to becoming, radicalized. If
The next
in other
Portland
words.
or Seattle,
Right.
a city that can be a little more,
Yeah.
edgy.
I mean, with everybody like crammed on the West Coast here, I wouldn't be surprised if you got a mass migration of people from California, Oregon.
I don't know, man. I think it's going to go the opposite way because like
Really?
the summers are getting too hot in Arizona.
Yeah.
No,
Climate
we've
change.
had a lot of people exactly that moving from California down
wow.
into Arizona because of the housing crisis. And that's what's, now we're developing a housing crisis here. Everyone's getting priced out of things because the people who had California, not quite California money, but certainly more than enough to
Tucson
buy
money?
something in Arizona,
Yeah.
have come down here. So, but you're right. I mean, it is getting hotter, but everywhere else it's getting a lot colder.
Sure.
So
Yeah, I just remember like I read a report in Phoenix that was like, wasn't it last summer or this summer? The summer I moved, summer of 2023. So yeah, I guess last summer because it's now January 10th. That like I was seeing images of people's like brake lights, the plastic red covers over their brake lights in the back of their cars had like melting in. Yeah, like just their cars are melting just in driveways, which is like that's a pretty good sign that like you shouldn't be in your city anymore if your cars are melting on the street. And I think
I remember I went to Lake Powell, and when I came back, there was a hole burned into my seat because it had been sitting in the sun.
Yeah, it's like,
Holy
dude,
shit.
it's fucked, man. And it's like, I think I read a news story that was like, at the rate that it's going, they're projected that Phoenix, because Phoenix is like a few degrees hotter than Tucson. Tucson is a cooler temperature.
Southern more.
Yeah, it's like right on the border, like, I don't know, an hour north of the Mexico border. But like, yeah, Phoenix is like not going to be livable soon. Like, it's just like the reports, if current trends can stay consistent, like people physically can't live in Phoenix anymore because it's just too hot.
Well, it's all concrete too. There's so little.
There's like zero trees. It's just
it's
asphalt everywhere.
Sounds like there needs to be some type of development to change that.
Yeah, sounds like somebody should get on that.
I know, like I've seen like reports of like if you change the whole like environment of like the concrete jungle and you add trees and you can bring the temperature significantly
like
down.
20-30 degrees down. Yeah, well, that's actually, that comes into class divides too. Is I forget what the news outlet in Phoenix is. They did a story about that I read like not long before I left, which was like there are neighborhoods in like North Phoenix and Central Phoenix that are like much more affluent, rich neighborhoods, and they have trees along their sidewalks.
Of course. So that's not new either.
Yeah, I mean, that's not a new thing. But if you go to like the south side of Phoenix or the west side of Phoenix, where it's much poorer, it's just dirt and concrete everywhere, and it's like literally 20 degrees hotter in those neighborhoods. And so like the quality of life, the conditions.
It's the same in Tucson too.
Yeah, I would imagine it's the same in Tucson. It's just like those neighborhoods have like golf parks or golf courses and like trees everywhere. Not trees everywhere because it's still the desert, but like trees that are artificially planted or implanted into the sidewalks, like on the sides of the streets, and it just like it gives that illusion of like trees overhanging on your street, which it's not super natural, but at least it is like helping. It is, and it does lower the temperature considerably. Sorry, Faye, what were you gonna say?
Well, I like those groups that are going out and just planting trees on their own, planting trees, and the people who are like seeding for native plant life, so in those otherwise like urban.
That reminds me of the story. The protesters out. I forget what building it was. It was like the Netflix building, I want to say, or like the HBO building, or whatever. One of the studios in LA. The writer strike protests is they all showed up one day, and all the trees that had been on the sidewalk in front of those buildings were all cut down. And it was like a very deliberate, what they assume was a very deliberate attempt to like remove their shade. It was like July in LA, and it was fucking hot, and so like they showed up one day, and there were just stumps all along the street where there were trees where they were protesting in the shade. And they're thinking like the networks probably paid somebody just to cut those trees down, which they probably wasn't their trees. It was probably like city trees, but like, yeah, that was, I remember hearing that story.
The length they'll go to.
Yeah, it was like, it wasn't widely reported on. It was just like one little thing they did. It was like, and there's no proof that they really did it. But like,
well, I mean, there's got to be like some sort of camera like on the city street.
Or like a work order or contract somewhere. If anybody actually, there may be a story on it that somebody actually dove deeper. I just heard it on a podcast by some guys that were out there, and they said they showed up one day and all the trees were cut down, and they were like just dying out there because it was July in LA. It was like 100 degrees.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, I know they've a lot of places been painting like their roofs, especially if the roofs are flat. They've been painting them white. To reflect the sunlight, because like white is like the color of white, it like reflects the most sunlight. It doesn't absorb.
It's very common here. Yeah,
white roofs. That's why football players wear black on their cheeks, because it absorbs the light, doesn't reflect it, so it'll direct it out of their eyes.
That makes sense, actually.
There you go. That's why asphalt why is it black? It's like the worst fucking possible color for it.
We need white streets.
Yeah, it's just like basically just a sponge for heat on the streets.
White streets wouldn't be good because it
it would be bright as shit. Yeah, we just need not streets. We just need trains to sit like tracks and no streets. Just get rid of cars and just institute.
I would say get rid of all cars.
Increase public transit though.
Yeah, 100%.
Increase and improve.
Yeah,
train tracks through people's houses. Had to go to work, honey.
Yeah, dude, I wish. Not that, but
Oh my god.
How's the trolley in Arizona or in Tucson? Have you ever taken that train?
The modern metro? No.
So there's such specific Tucson lore, but like the city council in the city of Tucson dumped like hundreds of millions of dollars into this stupid fucking trolley that goes like about 40 feet downtown Tucson. Like it's just, I mean, obviously it's more than that, but like it's just this dumbass little trolley that only goes down like one street.
I think it's doing exactly what they wanted it to do, because it goes through like the most touristy spots and the most like utilized by college students and their families, right? And the people that frequent Fourth Avenue or downtown. So it's getting a lot of use. I'm
Yeah.
sure they're making their money back, but yeah, it just seemed certainly at the time like a huge waste of money when it could have been going into something more
Or
useful.
like developing that for like actual like transit, because exactly, I think it is
Yeah.
designed for like, it's just in the shopping centers of this like two major streets. There's like these two streets that kind of intersect in downtown Tucson that are like the major shopping hubs, right? And like it does not go for very long distance, and it only goes there. And I remember like the joke was that they like spent all that money, and the first ride it took, it couldn't get up the Fourth Avenue
It was
underpass.
what was too tall, yeah, or something
Yeah,
like that.
and so
Yeah.
like it didn't make it under the underpass because it was like too tall. So they just like, it was just it was a laughing stock of like how inept and incompetent like the city.
And
built
China's
was.
building like freaking bullet trains going like 300
And that
miles
city
an hour.
council member is mayor now. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, like if they were to like actually put that money into public transit, even just so that buses were free. You know, buses have been free for the past couple of years because of the pandemic. But you know, and we've had to continue like voting to keep it that way, but it's going to go back to people having to pay, and you know, and that's a whole nother thing. But of course, generally people who take public transit can't afford to be paying those types of prices, you know?
Yeah, for sure. While you brought it up, let me ask you the question: where do you stand on electoral politics? This is not what we're talking about here today, and I don't mean to totally just like throw you under the bus, but we've talked about that quite a bit, is like the nature of like Marxists voting, right? Like as a Marxist, like where do you stand on electoral politics, and like how does your Marxism influence your electoral choices? How does the government influence your Marxism? So like there's an intersection there that we've explored over a number of episodes. So now that I have you here, I kind of want to ask you.
Yeah,
what is your relationship with voting?
Yeah, my relationship with voting. Well, I've always been a voter. I always thought, especially like in local elections where I think it does have more of an impact, of course, but yeah, unfortunately I was a blue no matter who, up until the last election, right? Because my eyes had not been opened up to that point. I think now, and they have people out there asking these exact questions on the street, asking you like, what do you think, especially, the third party people, what do you think about, these candidates? Would you ever consider third party voting? I mean, at this point, yeah, I think, and I saw one of your clips on TikTok, like right before this. Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, a vote for Biden is just a throwaway vote. It doesn't matter. So I was never going to vote for him again anyway. So I would say that either no vote or third party vote. And that's,
Yeah.
And honestly, I'd rather go third party vote only because, the more that we do that, the greater potential of people seeing like that being a viable option at some point down the road.
Yeah,
it's not going to happen this time, obviously. But I think the more people we get out there to do it, they can see that it doesn't have to be just one way.
Yeah.
I was going to say the main problem here is when they're having these presidential debates, they only invite the Democratic and Republican candidates on.
Yeah.
And why can't they invite Green Party on, or really
they could
prominent, really prominent independents, like Cornel West or somebody. But
it's intentional.
Yeah, it's definitely intentional.
Yeah.
That's the point. It's just like they want to make it an illusion. It's like, oh, you can only choose these two, instead of being like, oh, here are your other candidates. Because let me tell you, if we had multiple candidates on the stage besides the two main parties, the outcome of the 2024 election would be 100% different.
Yeah.
I mean,
like, can you imagine like Garcia and De La Cruz like on the debate stage with Trump and Biden? Like they're so much fucking smarter.
It would be, yeah.
It'd be brutal. Like
Cornel West would eat him alive.
Yeah, Cornel West, dude. Yeah, it would just. Yeah, I mean, like I've seen what's her name, Jill Stein, and I've seen Marianne Williamson, and they're not super great debaters. Marianne Williamson just talks so slow. She's just very
Crystal
uncharismatic.
Mommy. She's
just so like she's a charisma black hole, dude. She lacks all like charisma.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever seen Marianne Williamson talk. It's just so slow and it's so soft.
Yeah.
But like, but Cornel West is a very like eloquent, educated man, and like he's way smarter than both Trump and Biden. He's just like, you
don't have to be a Marxist for me to vote for you, man. But just fuck, it's anything besides highly corrupted individuals at that at a certain point.
Yeah, so I think we're all pretty much on the same page. Like we were never going to vote for Biden anyway, but it would be nice to see a third party. And yeah, you're right. Like it's not like it's going to be like a victory, but I think if enough people, I don't think you have to vote for a third party. I just think if Biden specifically, if this shows up and he just loses by 20% or something, and it's just like that's the message enough that like it's so clear that we don't fucking want you or your policies.
And now, okay, so we talked about earlier, like the Tucson demographic gets made up of, a fair amount of like progressive liberals. My dad being one of them, I would say is fairly progressive. And he and I got into an argument recently, well, a couple arguments, but one of them was, he was talking about voting, he's talking about the upcoming election, and he's telling me, I know what you think, but you have to vote for Biden.
Don't have to do
And
anything.
Yeah,
right, right.
that's the point.
But he's saying if Trump wins, that he already has all these things in motion to essentially, become a dictator. And I'm trying to tell him these are things that have already been happening.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And Biden is no better. I mean, Trump may be more malicious or more openly malicious in his like intent and his actions, but it's all the same. I'll have to send you that video that my dad insisted that I watch.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Yeah, you're not wrong. Like, and I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head. It's about that openness, right? Like, yeah, Trump is more open about it, but that doesn't change. That doesn't make Biden any less so. He's just more closeted about it, more sneaky about it, or even less like. It's like what do you call that? Like just like when you don't know that you're racist, like an old guy. It's like it's just that. It's just like he doesn't like the Democratic Party policies are just not as like mask off awful,
well, yeah,
fascistic, but they are still like their goal, their end result is the same.
And I would say like in Obama's terms, like even more so because he was an intelligent, he is an intelligent person, and so he did know exactly what he was doing, and still, keeping things behind the curtain. Whereas Biden, of course, is a lot less intelligent and slick, I guess you could say.
Yeah, like politically savvy, I guess. Just with it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
This dude's just not there. Like,
Yeah.
you can,
Yeah, like
you can be
And he
politically.
doesn't. He was only ever a sidekick, so that's why he has done so. That's part of why he's done so miserably in terms of just like how people feel about him in general.
Yeah.
That's why Obama was so popular, is because he was a charming person.
Yeah, very charismatic, very charming.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and like to speak of Biden's sidekickness too, is like that has been his life for the past like I don't know, 15 years or 12 years politically, I guess. Even I would say even as a president, he's still like a sidekick to Trump. Like Trump still gets more airtime than Biden even as president. But like pre-Obama, like if you go deep into like Biden's Senate like history, any bill or like anything that Biden really took the lead on, like really charged or championed, it's all awful. Oh, yeah. Like he was incredibly anti-abortion, anti like gay marriage. He basically invented the idea of cops seizing your money. What's that? Asset forfeiture. Yeah. Like civil asset forfeiture was basically like Biden's brainchild.
Don't forget about the 90s crime bill.
The crime bill in the 90s, it's just criminalized everything. Like all of that shit comes from Biden. Like Biden is like a conservative.
He also wrote the bill for he also wrote the bill, I believe, where you cannot declare bankruptcy on student loans.
Yeah. So like he's just everything that came from him where he wasn't a sidekick is just absolutely awful. Anytime he was a sidekick, he was just useless. And now this guy, this awful man, is front and center. And it's just like, what did you think was going to happen? Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, and his Zionism was never a secret either. We just weren't.
Yeah, it wasn't like I think people just weren't really paying attention to like Zionism as a as a national kind of conversation.
To be honest, I don't think people even knew what Zionism really was until recently, and I don't think it was taboo.
Yeah, I didn't.
Recently.
No. I wrote a paper about it my first year of college. I took a Jewish history class, and that's when I learned about Zionism. But I was like I wasn't anti-Zionism then. I wasn't pro-Zionism, but it wasn't like an anti-stance. It was more of just like, oh, this is a thing that's like, oh, Jewish homeland, cool. But like at the time, it wasn't from like a political lens. It was just from like a historical lens.
Yeah,
it was like David Ben-Gurion and like the first prime minister of Israel.
Yeah, well, that is something that's so scary, is that even as because I find you to be a very intelligent person, Ty, and it's so scary that even the most intelligent people we could still miss those things, right? Where if we're not being critical enough in looking and asking questions about the things that we are, taking in.
Yeah, I don't know if it has anything. Well, I mean, I think intelligence is like the base part of that, but well, thank you first of all. But like, I think that like it has to do with like, I learned
empathy.
And also just like connecting the dots of like, you're not told that the one thing intersects with the other, and that's kind of where it came from to me. Is like I learned all about Jewish history. I took a college course on just Jewish history, 1492 to present, I think, and so it was like the Spanish expulsion of Jews on through the present. Covered in depth the creation of Israel, the different like Zionist like trips to Jerusalem, and in like the late 1800s up until like the actual formation of. But at no point was it ever put in a light or talked about in a way that was like anything other than just like a natural succession of events. Yeah, it needed a home. Zionism, right. Zionism is the answer, and it never talked about Zionism as like settler colonialism in like the highest order of just like pretty awful like.
But that's not
ideology.
Like open. That's like not open in the education system.
And, I don't know. But you're right. It's like there's definitely a disconnect between people that are like. I don't know. I think that's a bigger conversation about just like the nature of like being leftist ideology in just America in general, like in public education. Like I had a conversation with my students today about like, they're taught that like peaceful protest is the way to go. They're crammed with Gandhi and Martin Luther King down their throat, and like they're not told that like both of those guys were assassinated before they're like shit really happened, and like it was only after through violent protest that anything actually happened. Yeah. And they're not taught about like the Black Panther Party or Malcolm X, who achieved basically the same thing as Martin Luther King, or even more impressive than Martin Luther King through violence and through the intimidation and threat of violence.
Well, when talking about like those types of things, it's like, there's you could be an intellectual, you can be educated, but you lack that moral compass. So for example, Chomsky, he's educated. He's an intellectual, but he lacks a moral compass and many things. Like for example, he like denies the genocide of my people even happened. So and then there's pop-ups of him on Epstein's Island.
Yeah, Noam Chomsky. He was like this like.
Does he still teach at the U of A?
I don't think so.
He's like
that's what I was about to say. Like we grew up in Tucson, like idolizing Noam Chomsky because he was Tucson's guy, and like if you were like a progressive or a liberal or whatever in Tucson, like you fucking just swallowed the dick of Noam Chomsky, and like, now it's like as like more of an enlightened like Marxist, I'm like, oh, that guy's fucking awful. Like I cannot believe I like worship
more of an
him.
Anarchist, but
he's like a libertarian socialist, I guess, or like not even which is just anarchist, right? Like
to a certain extent. They're very similar, but again, like I said, like a lot of people just lack a moral compass. You could be as intelligent and educated as you want, but I mean they're intelligent and educated Nazis as well.
Sure,
they're head of the empire. Why do you think they got so far?
The best scientists in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Why do you think NASA was so successful?
Exactly. But it's that moral compass at the end of the day.
Yeah, and that's what I love about Marxism specifically is like Marxism isn't like the coolest thing about Marxism to me, and the part that like makes me so like just happy with where I am now as a person is like it comes from a place of altruism, right? Like I am fighting so hard, and I go to all these meetings, and I'm a part of all this bureaucracy in the Communist Party and all this. In a hope that one day I can get these houseless people off the street, or in the hope that I can once get these people like some food to eat or something, and then it's all for other people. And like every socialist experiment has always been about like lifting up the lowest among you, and that's really like noble, I think. And that's just, I think that's a cool thing about it. That's a cool thing about communism, baby. It's just about helping your fellow man.
A lot of people just like it was not even a lot of people, just like the government in general, Western democracy, so-called. They like to skew socialist experiments in the past by misconstruing facts or kind of bringing things out of context. And it's the same thing with like Gandhi. Gandhi was a peaceful protester, blah blah blah. Yeah, and after his peaceful protest, he would go fucking finger little girls. And so yeah. So the guy was not a good guy at all. He I
mean Martin Luther King was like a famous philanderer and like womanizer, and like he cheated on his wife with like dozens of women.
Whatever, fucking. I don't give a fuck who he's fucking.
That's not as bad as Gandhi, but
it's like it's that same thing. There's like this guy or what's his fucking pig face from England. Churchill. Yeah. Oh my God.
Winston Churchill was a monster.
Churchill. This guy.
Awful.
fucking monster.
Yeah, killed more people than Stalin.
Yeah, fucking monster.
By like 10 times as many people as Stalin.
He was in favor of colonialism. He was a fucking bigot. He was a homophobe. I mean, and he's still praised. He's still like, quoting Winston Churchill. I'm like, dude, are we really quoting this guy?
Yeah.
I'm like, why? Because he's British and he wasn't. The dude believed the same things the Germans believed.
I was going to say because he's white. Basically.
Yeah, because he's white. Well, that's what we talked about the UN today too. We're talking about Rwandan genocide in my classroom today. South African apartheid, Rwandan genocide, and then the New Zealand independence. We're doing like a little unit on like imperialism and like imperial structures that remain after independence of these countries. And we were talking about how the UN just absolutely failed Rwanda, and like and like they failed. They're failing in Palestine. And they failed in and I use Bosnia as an example. Failing in Bosnia. It's like they've never really came to anybody's rescue unless it's like white people, and then they're like pseudo interested. But even still, like even with Bosnians, like Bosnians are still white people, and they still failed.
Slavic Muslims that were communist previously.
Yeah, so they're like, nah, they don't care about the Bosnians. Yeah,
the whole point of our genocide was to white Muslims out of Europe, and they agree with that. They're like,
they'd be on board with that. So
yeah.
Well, you mentioned Israel, and we started talking about Israel, and then we started getting back off topic. But I want to steer us back to Israel. I'm sorry, Faye, did you have something to add just there? No? Okay. I want to steer us back to Israel because that was the whole point of today's episode, and we're now 40 minutes in, and we haven't talked about Israel, but that's okay. So we can do a tight 20 on.
Oh, it's with a guest. We can go longer. We can go
a little longer. We're not doing the debate. For anyone interested, we're not doing the debate. Fucking HBO, man, or CNN. So I don't know if you heard the problem, Faye, what we were dealing with. If you record a screen in any way from HBO/CNN, CNN is
it won't let you record
it's like watermarked out. It's like DRM watermarked out, so it's just a black screen. And
it's the same thing if you try to like screenshot, YouTube or something on your phone. Or like
so
Hulu
dumb.
or
I didn't know that. Yeah.
It's just it's copyrighted.
Yeah. I mean, like if I knew any
OnlyFans. Okay, I didn't know that.
I've never even been on OnlyFans, but I've heard about that people would try to screenshot it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They literally can't.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And not from experience, you're saying.
No, I've never gone on OnlyFans.
And I think that's a good thing because, like, sure, that is an individual person's like.
Yeah,
livelihood. So I don't have a problem with that. But like for HBO, I mean, like I understand.
Well, especially something that you already pay for.
Well, that was what we were talking about. Is like I pay $10 or $15 a month or whatever for HBO Max, and like CNN is included in that bundle, and like it's mine now. I bought it. Isn't that the whole point of like libertarianism in America?
No,
it's
because
mine, I bought
because I mean, because even like if you buy a DVD, it tells you can't you can't use that for other.
Yeah, that's fair. There's copyright laws. I guess I was being a little like reductionist. I guess that's fair.
Yeah.
I just think that
but
sorry, go for it.
Sad. I was just gonna say you're just sad you couldn't do what you wanted to do.
We wanted to stream the debates, but also like that's news and entertainment. Like that should be fair and free use or free.
I think because it's politics. Because
that I would agree with.
If it's politics and it has something to do with who's going to be in charge of our country, I think something like that should be able to be accessed.
Yeah,
by
there's a copyright phrase which like I think it's just called fair use. We learned about it in college for like teachers because like teachers have to take a class on like how to steal shit from the internet essentially because like that's the nature of modern teaching. We also had to take there was a whole unit in one of my classes about how best to ask for money, like how to add like GoFundMe things to your email signatures, like how to set up Amazon wish list. That is in Teachers College like curriculum, is like how to beg for money, which if anything, if you ever want to talk about the state of American education, just keep in mind that Teacher College curriculum has how to beg for money baked into that curriculum. But anyway, we couldn't stream the debate. We wanted to stream the debate. I would assume that would count under fair use because it's news and it's politics. Like that should be that. Like that's okay.
After it goes live,
I got to rant again. It is. It'll be available like tomorrow for everybody. But if you wanted to watch it live, you had to have either cable thing or a HBO subscription. So here's my rant. I went on this rant as I got close to this rant last time. Is we keep talking about the nature of democracy. Liberals love their institutions. They love just like the ideas of things. Like they just love the idea of the Supreme Court. You can never get rid of the Supreme Court. It's just like the most treasured body in the land. You have to love Congress. You have to love democracy. You have to love the president. You might not love the president, but you have to respect the office of the president. They love institutions and putting that shit up on a pedestal. Problem is that they all agree that there's like this free and an informed electorate, right? Like an educated and informed electorate is what you need. So they're all like, free like education, like news, politics. Everyone, you should have all this access to information because back when everyone had access to information, and everyone was more well read, everyone was more educated. Politics was more like it was just better. It was just more accessible, right? Mm-hmm. Now they're locking the actual Republican presidential debate, like something that you would need for a free and fair,
to be an informed voter.
to be an informed citizen.
Mm-hmm.
They're locking it behind. Not only is it locked behind a paywall, but now you can't even like distribute it to the masses. Like, what happened to that shit being
disgusting.
on like? What happened to that being on like public TV, right? Like, that should all be on NPR or what's it called? PBS, the TV station.
That's
PBS.
what I'm saying.
Like, I think, and not for nothing, but like in most countries, the shit is on PBS. Like the public, well, also most countries, the TV stations are all state owned, which is the way it should be. But like, yeah, I don't know. That rant was not cohesive and not coherent at all. But I think you get what I'm trying to say. An informed electorate. If you want an informed electorate, cut it up so that it makes me sound like I'm not an idiot. That's what I need. I'll edit it so I don't sound like an idiot. But like, if you want an informed electorate, you have to inform your electorate, and they're refusing to do that.
So why do you think America wouldn't want to inform their electorate?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously it's because we're no longer a democracy. We're like an oligarchy of like just a handful of technocrats and like
corporate oligarchy.
Like corporate oligarchy.
Yeah, that's the thing is that's the point that it used to be before, because I mean I wouldn't say it was less capitalistic, but it was less dystopian. But now they go to lengths to make sure that they stay a corporate oligarchy.
Yeah,
All
right, well, let's talk about Israel. We've beat around this Israel bush long enough. Let's talk about Palestine. I got a couple notes.
Go on.
Well, first up, I want to kind of like just start the conversation with a bit of a somber note. The death toll, as of the most recent reports I could get, I think it was like January 2nd, they were almost at 23,000 deaths.
I swear I've seen more.
Yeah, I mean, this is where that was a week ago, so I'm sure it's, I think how many like
almost at 30, like 29,000.
Wow.
I've seen.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Oh, maybe
too.
my information is out of date then. As at the end of December, again, which is where some of these statistics I got, 9,000 of those were children, and we're pushing 60,000 injured. Which is also probably much higher.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I was saying like 11,000 children.
Yeah.
It's one of the last.
I think they don't account like missing people as well. I don't think they count that as deaths.
Well, wouldn't that be like triple?
Yeah, like under the rebel.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we've talked a couple times now about the UN Security Council votes. There was 2 separate UN Security Council votes. There was a third on December 22nd. This was not a ceasefire vote. This was instead a vote specifically to just allow humanitarian aid in, because there's the quote specifically I have here is the resolution calls, this is from Reuters, quote, the resolution calls for urgent steps to immediately allow safe, unhindered, and expanded humanitarian access and to create the conditions for a sustainable cessation of hostilities. So it calls for a cessation of hostilities. It does not call for a ceasefire. Because it does not call for a ceasefire, it did pass. In the United Nations Security Council of 15 countries, it passed 13-0. 2 countries abstained, the first obviously being the United States. The second country would surprise you, the abstention came from Russia, but not because they disagreed with the resolution, but because the first draft of this resolution did call for a ceasefire. And shout out to Russia for doing one good thing.
Based Russia?
Question mark? They voted in abstention just out of symbolism and solidarity with Palestine, because the previous draft says ceasefire. And this one didn't, so they thought it wasn't strong enough language. They wanted a ceasefire.
There's also the context that Iran is
heavily allied with Russia, and now
exactly.
Iran. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's probably more underhanded, under-table like dealings here. Yes, Iran is heavily backing both Lebanon and Palestine, and also Iran and Russia are very close. So like Iran may have asked Russia, be like, "Hey man, throw us a bone here" or something. I don't know. Maybe it was a show of good faith from Russia to Iran. Regardless, the resolution passed. I don't know what that actually looks like in practice, but I will say the dumbest thing I've ever heard, and this is just the liberal meme you've seen over and over. Have you seen all of the do you condemn Hamas memes over and over? But do you condemn Hamas? Do you know what the actual UN ambassador for the United States said as to why they voted in abstention?
Why?
Because it didn't condemn Hamas. Because it says the bill doesn't acknowledge a condemnation of Hamas, so I couldn't vote for it. And I'm just like, are you fucking kidding me, dude? The liberal meme is so true. So like the actual quote from the UN ambassador is, let me find it. We would quote, we would love to see a condemnation of Hamas, end quote, a senior U.S. diplomat told CNN. And that's why they didn't vote for it. So I just think that's so fucking disgusting that like it didn't say we condemn Hamas in the humanitarian aid to lift. I think they estimated over 500,000 people out of famine conditions because it didn't condemn Hamas. So they would let a child die just because you didn't say condemn Hamas. Another quote here, or another note I have here is America abstained after receiving a lot of criticism for their no votes previously. They just chose to not vote. Russia also abstained, yada, yada, yada. I got that. Quote, we believe the resolution begins to unblock life-saving aid, whose denial has condemned more than 500,000 people in Gaza to famine. That was from the United Arab Emirates UN ambassador, who was the author of this bill. This resolution came from the UAE. Shout out to UAE.
UAE isn't great themselves with all that blood gold they've gotten.
Yeah, they're also like pretty not great. They've been one of the countries to actually label Hezbollah a terrorist organization. Like UAE is like pretty heavily allied to Saudi Arabia, I think, which is pretty heavily allied to America. So UAE is not great in terms of like global politics, but they're the ones who are they were the architect of this bill.
I hate this shit. I mean, dude, let's go Houthis, bro. They've been, dude, put in so much. It's not even a country. It is just like a rebel group in another country. It's like, you know, we've had enough. Fuck this
rogue
shit.
Group just taking over. You're like, you know what? Hold my beer. We're going in.
Hold my beer. Hold my beer, brother.
Pretty good stuff.
Hakeem, hold my beer.
I'm not gonna. You're Muslim.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do that voice.
I got the pass.
Yeah, you got the Arab voice pass. I can't really do that.
Oh God.
Yeah. If you didn't know, Faye, Kanan is Muslim.
That's a relief.
Otherwise, we'd have to have an awkward conversation. Also, I don't know. Yeah, okay. I don't know. I don't know if just being Muslim gives you a pass to do voices.
Half my
Probably
friends
not.
are Iraqi Muslim.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll leave that one. We'll let that lie. We'll unpack that later.
I don't think accents are inherently racist.
I think for white people to do them, they are.
I'm not really white.
But you're not really white.
No.
Yeah.
My skin color is white, but that's about it.
Yeah.
My grandfather wore fesses, like Aladdin fess.
Yeah.
Daily. So.
Okay.
My great grandfather wore a turban.
Is that a fez? Like
fez.
The red hat?
Yeah, the red hat.
That's cool.
Ottoman age.
Yeah,
we were part of the Ottoman Empire.
You're part of the old Ottoman Empire.
500 years we were under the Ottoman Empire.
Istanbul, not Constantinople?
Yeah, Istanbul, not Constantinople.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Nah, fuck Constantinople.
Fuck them.
Are you how versed are you on your 15th century Turkish history, Faye?
Not at all.
It was a joke. It's fine. That's a deep cut for any history teachers out there.
Yeah, I wasn't on the.
What was his name? Suleiman
the Magnificent.
Suleiman the Magnificent. Yeah, he sacked Constantinople in like 1450.
Yeah, fuck him.
1452 or something.
1452, anyway. I think.
Yeah, that's what I said. 40. I'm so good, dude.
You're good. Yeah.
Fuck. It's almost as if I'm a history teacher.
Almost.
Yeah. Next up from Al Jazeera. This is Israel. So Israel has attacked, is now going out of bounds. Israel has now, another drone strike kills a senior Hezbollah official. This was on just this Monday, a couple days ago. It's now Wednesday, January 10th. This was Monday, January, whatever Wednesday minus Monday is. This follows another drone strike in Beirut last week, which killed a high-ranking Hamas official. Hezbollah has fired back at Israel. So now there's a new talk of like an Israel-Lebanon war now because of Israel going out of Israel and now attacking its northern neighbor and their city, Beirut. The Hezbollah official that was killed, I guess, was like their senior. He was their leader of like the Hezbollah special forces. He was like a pretty serious commander. He had like a lot of operations in a lot of different countries going on. So it's actually going to like be a pretty big hit to like Hezbollah's like operational like abilities in the region.
That was on purpose.
100%. Yeah,
I mean,
they said it was an
obvious.
accident. Well, they said it was an accident. It was a car. Yeah. Well, they said, I forget what they said exactly, but they were targeting like a Hamas leader. It was a drone strike on a car. There was just two men in a car, and they targeted the car, and he was
That's
killed.
like, I mean, the way I'm seeing it is imagine like Russia invades Ukraine, blah blah blah. They sent a drone that accidentally hits the main general of Ukraine. Oh. What? Oh, not even Ukraine. Like,
wasn't that a plane? Didn't a plane go down or something?
Oh, so I think that is from.
That was a year ago.
That was from the private military company that turned on Russia and started heading toward Moscow.
Oh, the Wagner Group.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that basically they stopped the whole process of moving north toward Moscow, and then that guy was
Then that guy
incidentally
just
on the plane that
just
crashed.
coincidentally was on a crash plane. He like tried to kill Putin, and then like a month later he was just in a plane crash coincidentally.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. It's like that. It's like, oh no, look at that. Oh, the shame. We were really just aiming for a car full of children.
Yeah, fair enough. So that follows, like I said, that followed that and that high-ranking Hamas official they killed last week in Beirut. That was apparently like the highest-ranking Hamas person they've killed in this war, and they had to go outside of their own country to do it. So they had to go outside of Gaza or Palestine.
Not even
or
close to the border.
Not even close to
I know,
to Israel itself, which is just. I don't even think it shows you like just like we've talked about it. I think we talked about it last week or the week before. Like Israel like is just like losing this war. I think pretty handedly. Like from everything we've seen, like cause we're getting a lot of filtered stuff. Like we're not really getting a lot of information from the Israeli side of things, or at least from like the truth of it.
But in what way are they losing the war?
I think they're losing the ground war. Israel's losing the ground war in Gaza. Like I think that
they've already took half of or most of northern Gaza though.
Well, I mean, I don't think
and
they're like
70% of it of Gaza is now rubble. Like,
I don't mean like okay, I guess like it's not like a winning in a traditional sense, like winning. I just mean that like they're just putting up such a much stiffer resistance to like what they expected. That I think like the morale among Israel, like military, the IDF is just like at an all-time low. They're just like you just have these kids that are now terrified to go into Gaza, and like it's in a war of attrition. Obviously, a military backed by the U.S., one of the most advanced militaries in the world, against like children with tubes. Obviously, they're going to win in a long game, right? But I think that they just thought that they were just going to be able to steamroll in, bulldoze it down, and build a condo like over it. And I think it's just been proven to be just such a slog through these buildings that it's just proven to be a lot more difficult and a lot more deadly to Israel than they originally thought. I'm sorry, Faye, I cut you off. What were you saying?
No, I mean, I thought because I thought you were gonna say like they're losing like support.
Well, definitely losing support. Yeah, like the whole international community is turned against them. Like their whole like the morale of their own country is turned against them.
Not the whole,
well,
but
not everybody.
A decent amount.
Yeah,
but not really where it matters.
But like what we talked about, I think like day one was like it's a time. There's a ticking clock, right? Like, will it be enough before there's no Palestinians left? Like that's kind of the reality we're facing.
If people can, there's only so much we can do, but as long as people keep fighting for it, there's at least a chance.
A hope, a chance, yeah. Speaking of, and more depressing news, another hospital was bombed. It was in, I forgot the name of the neighborhood, but another hospital was bombed. I want to point out the hospital itself wasn't bombed. A bomb, an Israeli drone strike or an Israeli missile strike went off very close to a hospital, but it like disrupted hospital, facilities. Mm-hmm. The hospitals already at like I think most hospitals in Gaza are now like most hospitals are down
more than half. Yeah,
the remaining hospitals are operating at like 30% staff, 30% electricity. So it's like
they're like 3 times the capacity.
Yeah, and they're just stuffed. They're dealing with I watched this Al Jazeera YouTube video today. It was like they're dealing with like 100 ER patients an hour, which is just like they're just like it's just mass triage of just people flooding in through the door, just a nonstop stream of people coming in, a river of people coming in. Mm-hmm. So we've talked about hospitals and we've talked about just random people outside of your country being killed. But now we're seeing that Israel is targeting citizens, like Palestinian citizens are like intentionally being targeted, right? I mean, that's not a new thought, right? Like we've known that all along. No. And no one's really stopping it. This is another report from Al Jazeera that's talking about how Israeli is deliberately attacking civilians, quote, to expand the cycle of violence, says the Palestinian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Israel is systematically carrying out acts of terrorism against civilians by carrying out raids, detentions, and extrajudicial assassinations, the ministry said in a statement. Quote, there has been an increase in the severity of these acts in the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem, since the genocidal war against our people in Gaza began. So now these like kind of extrajudicial killings of civilians has moved from Gaza to the West Bank. And like this kind of leads into this next story about 2 Palestinian journalists were just killed in a drone strike. One of the journalists was the son of Al Jazeera's chief correspondent in Gaza. Palestinian officials say that this was a deliberate attack on those 2 journalists because once again, I believe this was just 2 journalists in a car and the drone strike hit that car very deliberately.
Because what is the last I heard was like 111 journalists
I
Probably
had
more
109.
now.
Actually, that was my next point here was, yeah, I had 109, but if it's 111 now, killing of a
Yeah.
journalist is a war crime. Like 100%, Geneva Convention state that killing a journalist is a war crime. And Israel, as of now, killed. I had 109, but if it's 111 journalists being killed, in
More than
the
one a day. I know that.
yeah, in the genocide, and they report that at least 96 of those have been deliberate. So even if it's an accident, because I think it's not a war crime if it's like, in an accidental thing, but like
Yeah.
if these are deliberate killings, I've at least coming up on 100, which I would probably at that point it's probably
How do you
most of them.
accidentally
Yeah.
kill most journalists?
Yeah, like these are
Yeah.
deliberate. Yeah, like that's
Deliberate killings of journalists, academics, healthcare workers.
yeah. So now we've talked about hospitals, civilians, journalists. So that brought me up to my like overall point here is that like this kind of goes back to the toothlessness of the UN of like, this is what their job is. Their only job is to stop shit like this from happening, right? When war crimes happen, they're supposed to step in. Somebody's supposed to step in. And you now have Israel intentionally targeting civilians, intentionally targeting journalists, and intentionally targeting hospitals. And I think the hospitals is like, you can make a case that they've never intentionally targeted a hospital because that one missile strike early on was like, they tried to throw the spin that it was actually a failed Hamas rocket or whatever. Remember that? But it was clearly an Israeli strike. Like that was an Israeli strike.
Well, and then they have tunnels underneath. They have a
And then
hideout under there.
In their hospitals, they all have tunnels.
And then I'm pretty sure it's a war crime just to flood the tunnels because you don't know who's down there. That's what if there's children, women, unarmed civilians.
To say nothing of just like cutting off water and like food, like that was, I think that was also the whole point of like,
yeah.
To even,
I mean, they say famine. I mean, they're literally, it's intentional. Like, it's not.
The famine wouldn't be there if they were.
This could be stopped.
And then also take it one step further back and just recognize that their entire occupation is internationally recognized as illegal. Like that they're not they're just their existence is not legally accepted as like recognized. So like it's just, I don't know. It kind of blows my mind at this point. There's just like there's no argument. There's no argument you can make. There's just no. I don't know. It seems like there's no excuse or apology you can make for these conditions that, like, in any way, under any circumstance.
And yet,
like, not only I don't mean like condone it. Like, I don't mean support it, but I just mean like condone it or like at least like ignore it. Like how have they not all been like arrested at this point? Like how has Netanyahu not just been like seized like for blatantly committing war crimes and breaking every international law and like every like humanitarian aid law known to man?
Well, because there's 5 permanent members for the Security Council, and one of them's in the U.S. Well, one of them is U.S. and one of them's Great Britain.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, it's all money.
Yeah, I mean, like, it seems like even then, like, this goes back to the liberal ideas of like upholding institutions. It's like, well, then fucking ignore them and just go in. Like Russia just needs to go in anyway, or like Iran. Well, I don't know. I guess the problem is that Palestine really has no allies.
I was gonna say everyone has their own special interests in this. So,
and I know I sound naive. I understand. It's just frustrating to just like see. It's like you just when you reach a level of like just seeing it for what it is, and then just being able to like just be like, well, why don't they just stop it? They have all of the means at their disposal to stop it. All of the laws were created to stop this intentionally. They were designed, created, and written to stop something like this from happening. It is now happening, and everyone's just like, well, and this one maybe.
And like it's this is a point that's been made before, but like, and of course, like even consider being in the position of someone a Palestinian who is in Gaza right now. But like, if we're seeing this and there's like such a blatant like literal genocide being carried out in front of our very eyes, that should terrify everyone. Yeah, that should terrify us here.
This is what we're seeing through the propaganda. This is how clear it is through propaganda, through state, like through the lens of like American softening this information coming from us, trying to like do their best spin to cover it. Israel doing their best to soften and spin, and Israel doing their best to cover it. And this is still what we're seeing in my basement in Seattle. So like, how bad must it really be?
Truly. And also, but I think social media has a lot to do with that.
Sure. Yeah.
Because like my dad's not on social media looking at this stuff. And so his perspective was solely through like CNN.
Yeah.
And like, that's not a reliable source in any capacity. And so, I've just been bombarding. He does have an Instagram. I said, you have an Instagram, right? I just started bombarding him with stuff from actual like people in Gaza.
Yeah. There's so many journalists on the ground.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
It's just crazy to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
kind of at a loss.
Yeah, I think we do need to have that discussion. It's important to have the discussion about the UN, because okay, if they're not doing anything now, how can we restructure them to not let this happen in the future? Because it's obviously doing nothing. It's a waste of time.
Yeah.
Right. So like, what can we do?
Yeah.
To make sure this doesn't happen in the future for the next genocide that breaks out.
But there's already simultaneous genocides going on in other countries.
Exactly, like Sudan. There's a couple. I think one other in Africa. Like there are multiple genocides all happening. There's 5 total currently happening right now, and like Palestine is just like the one that's getting the most play, and I think it's the most like visible. But there are like 4 other genocides literally happening
one in
at
the
same
Congo.
I think there's 8 total. Yeah, the Congo.
Was it 8 total? I thought it was 5. I think it was
8, including
Sudan
Palestine.
And it's just like insane.
There's the one of the Uyghur Muslims as well. And then China.
I don't know.
I'm not genocide like they're trying to wipe them out, but the genocide by cultural assimilation to be more Han.
All of those like original rumors that I've seen have all been debunked. Of like the Uyghur Muslims in China are just living their life unmolested and like fine. Like there's just been so many reports. There's been so many like that. Okay, you guys familiar with like the whole paper straw bullshit that we all have paper straws now because that one stupid fucking kid in like Indiana or whatever? Like, are you familiar with like the genesis of where the paper straws came from?
With the turtles.
One kid in one school report made up a statistic that like there's like 800,000 straws get dumped in the ocean every day or whatever. Like the statistic was made up. I forget the actual number.
He made it up.
Like the number wasn't real, and then like the news
and no one fact checked that at all.
Eventually they did. Yeah, I think even John Oliver did a story about this, but the damage had already been done. All of the news had picked up this story of like, oh, this is if you want to fight back against climate change, this is one tangible way you can do it. You can switch to paper straws. But like straws are not the problem. They never were. I mean, obviously they don't help, but like the point is that like the plastic straws, like he made up that stat. It wasn't that problem. That was like that was just attacking a problem as a scapegoat basically. And this is the same thing as that. It was like
putting it on the individual, first of all.
Yeah, there's a whole I mean, that's the whole thing about putting it on the individual as opposed to like Amazon polluting more than all of these companies combined. It's the same thing. The Uyghur thing is the same thing. It's one guy. His name is Adrian Zins. He's an incredibly xenophobic man. He's the most racist person you've ever met. Every single article, he's a journalist. Every single article he's met is just talking about the Chinese menace and the Chinese horde is doing all this. And all of the Uyghur rumors, every single Uyghur genocide story came from that one man because he's incredibly racist. And then CNN picked it up. And then NPR picked it up. And it's all spun. And everything you think you know about Uyghur genocide all came from this one incredibly racist man. And if you trace back every single reported story, who they quote, it always filters back to that one guy.
Okay, well, I'll have to do more research.
Yeah, the Uyghur genocide was completely a liberal like myth. There's no Uyghur genocide. It's completely made up.
I'm just biased because my people were literally persecuted for faith, you know. And so I wasn't saying that they were being ethnically cleansed. I was informed, whether it was correct or not, that they were being re-educated, basically trying to re-educate them and reculturalize them to become more like Han Chinese.
Yeah, and I think that there probably like is some of that happening, at least to a certain extent, of like, you know, just wanting them to be like more integrated into their customs and stuff and like be less like isolationist or whatever. And like I would argue that they should probably be left alone if that's what they want to do. But also like if you're in a communist country, that's like one of the trade-offs you get is like it kind of comes back to Thomas Hobbes in a way of like, not that I'm a supporter of Thomas Hobbes, but like his main idea was that like when you give up if you want security and protection from a monarchy, you give up personal freedoms from that, right? And so I don't support monarchy, obviously, but like but it's essentially the same trade-off with communism. Is like if you want the freedoms and protections that come with living in a communist country, you do give up certain freedoms, and those freedoms are to like openly criticize the government. Like you don't get all those rugged individualism that we in America like treasure. Is like that individualist characters, you give those up when you kind of enter into a contract of communism. And I, for one, like completely support that. I understand that like to lift everyone out of poverty, to end homelessness, to end illiteracy, to end like child disease and infant mortality rates, I won't get Facebook and be able to criticize the government. I'm okay making that trade, but I'm also an authoritarian Marxist, and not everybody like agrees with that, and that's fine. I accept that, but I am like a Stalinist. I am an authoritarian Marxist. I don't have a problem with a supreme dictator calling the shots, so long as they're a Marxist.
Yeah, but what happens when they become corrupted, or the person after them is corrupted? Or that's what I'm saying. It's like, how do I trust this guy?
How is that any different than what we're living in now? But at least there's no homeless.
No, 100%.
Well, why is that a good thing?
Yeah, that's my point.
What happens when there starts to become homeless, and then you can't say anything? That's
then but then you have to understand
putting your trust in one person is.
Yeah. Well, I'm not saying that like I would just like absolutely blindly follow Stalin regardless, but I'm saying like the point of a communist society is that like you do lose personal freedoms, and I'm fine with that. That was my point. But my point about that was that like to tie that back to the Uyghurs is like I am not in their position to make that decision for them. If they want to have more personal freedoms as they're in their Uyghurness, for lack of a better term, then I don't get to make that decision for them. And then if they consider that, like a negative thing, I'm not going to say genocide or ethnic cleansing, or if they consider that something that is a problem for them, then I shouldn't apologize for China on their behalf. I shouldn't defend China for that. If I'm wrong, I'll happily admit that. But as I understand it all comes back to one very racist man.
Yeah, if they want to, no, I see where you're totally coming from with like the whole like making out of a context. Yeah. But it's just like, what if they wanted to leave? They didn't want the protection under a communist state. They're not allowed to.
Yeah, because I think to be fair, they were there, before 1949. Right?
Also, like Tibet and all the multiple countries. Yeah. What if they want to leave China, but they can't? So, I mean, it gets a little
for sure. Yeah, there's a lot to figure out.
I need to know more. I don't know that much.
There's just a lot to figure out there. It's not as simple as I'm making it out to be, and it's not as simple as you're making it out to be.
I'm sure. I mean, why do you think the whole Uyghur thing, Muslim thing, like went away for a while?
Well, I think that's why it went away, is because like everyone lost interest because there's not actually a catastrophe, there's not actually genocide, and it just went away because like, oh, that story lost its traction because like there was nothing there to begin with.
Yeah, there's nothing there because if there is something there, it's gonna keep going.
Yeah. So I think like sorry, go ahead, Faye.
I was trying to find like the like the infographic or whatever that had listed them. I mean, obviously the Sudan and the Congo right now. I know those for sure. In addition to Palestine, obviously. But yeah, I wasn't finding it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a bummer, man. I don't know. It's a bummer, man. Not a great, end to that conversation. It's just a bummer.
It's a bummer.
It's a bummer, man. Anyway,
got
any fashion tips?
Fashion tips.
I don't know.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Why? Because I'm a woman.
I was actually talking to Kanan. Thank you very much. He's wearing a cool hat.
Well, I mean, my fashion is pretty simple. I have shorts and a t-shirt right now.
I know. I'm bummed that Faye can't see you.
But no, just these discussions need to be had, but with an open mind and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's my thing too. Is like, I want to have these conversations with people. Like, I want to be proven wrong about this, but like, no one is willing.
They come in so stubbornly.
Yeah, like I had a conversation with. I want to keep this as vague as possible because this is like somebody I like. But like, I had a conversation about the Uyghur Muslims. This was years ago, like when the story kind of first like hit mainstream liberal media. Of like this, and they were like, we got to protect the Uyghurs, whatever. And I was already like, this doesn't pass the sniff test for me. Like, this just came out of nowhere. All of the information is like shady at best. And like, I dug into it further, and I found that like, all of this reports, because like immediately leftist people were like, no, this isn't real. Like, anyone that's kind of like has like a beat on China was like, no, this isn't really a real thing. This all came from this very racist man. And I tried to have that conversation with them, and they just like, they shut down the conversation. They're just like, you're just like denying this. Like, this is a thing just because you defend China. Like you're and like they got really emotional about it. And I'm like, okay, well, you're not ready to have the conversation. Like, I'm not like some like diehard Xi Jinping like fanboy. I'm like not going to defend China to my dying breath, but like you're wrong about this one. Like, it's just, or at least that's what I believe. I'm happy to be wrong, but I
mean, well, see, that's exactly it though, right? Like that's what you believe to be true, and that's what they believe to be true, and that's why it's really impossible to have these sorts of conversations with a lot of people. But you think with like what we're seeing literally, with our own eyes, like through our phones, you think that people would be more receptive to wanting to stop a genocide. Or at least acknowledging
that's what I'm saying,
its existence. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like you're seeing, like we kind of mentioned a couple times on the show, like the celebrity angle of this, of like which celebrities come out in favor of which, and like not that really matters, but there are still people like that are like just diehard Zionists, and like it's just crazy.
I mean, it is wild. Yeah, it is wild.
I mean, like, go ahead.
No, what was that like Deborah Messing thing more recently?
Right, yeah. Well, Jerry Seinfeld was just in Israel.
She's like, oh, I'm home. I'm home, or someone told her she's home. She's not even. First of all, she's not. Nor are her ancestors from but that's fine.
Like from Israel, yeah, like from
Yeah,
the
not at
indigenous
all.
that land, the Levant region. Yeah, but most
No.
of them are. I mean, like Jerry Seinfeld was just in Israel, like talking about
Yeah.
like like defending the homeland or whatever the fuck. And I'm like, dude, you're from like Brooklyn or the Bronx or whatever. Like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just frustrating.
Yeah, no, I think Deborah Messing specifically, she is literally from Brooklyn, and I think her ancestors are from like Poland.
Yeah, I mean, most of them are. Like, no, very few Jews. I'm not going to say no. I'm just going to say like I'm not going to say no Jews, but I'm going to say like very few Jews are from that region because like that region hasn't been inhabited by Jews for 2,000 fucking years. Like the kingdom of Judea fell in like 70 A.D. and that was the last time Jews were there. Like
there's still plenty of Jews.
There's
there
still Jews
there,
but I mean like that's the last time it was a Jewish homeland.
Yeah,
like it hasn't been a Jewish region since 2,000 years ago. And then Jews have lived there since then, obviously, but like not in the like the numbers that are now claiming indigenousness, like you get some white dude from Queens or Long Island that's like, I'm indigenous to Israel, and like, dude, no, you're not.
No, I had to bring it back to it. I was just like looking at this shit, like it's no wonder people are like bringing it up because there's like declarations from reports that they're forcibly mass sterilizing Uyghur women to suppress the population, separating children from their families and attempting to break the cultural traditions of the group.
Yeah,
but these like it's like supposed reports. This is from BBC by the way. So
yeah, I don't know.
British media.
Yeah, I don't know. I would. Again, I question the validity of those because I think they 100%. All. If you
think of the straws.
Yeah, if you all follow the. Thank you, Faye. If you follow the sources back, it always leads back to the same reporting from that one guy.
Yeah, China denies it and shit like that. So.
Yeah, obviously China denies it, and I think a lot of the rumors started spreading is because China refused entry for inspections. Like they refused any like there was like people like, well, let us come into these Uyghur camps and look or whatever, and they refused.
They should just let them in.
Honestly. I think they should have. I think that I agree, but I think that's as a country, it's their choice not to, right? Like if you imagine like if there was a report of like, okay, how's this? There's a report of Iranian nationals in Guantanamo Bay, right? Mm-hmm. And then Iran says, well, let us come in and look. You think U.S. would be like, okay, sure, here's the keys to Guantanamo.
Exactly.
Yeah, China can say fuck off. It's their country. They're allowed to say fuck off. You're not coming into my country. So like, you want to allow like, because you fucking better believe that those quote unquote neutral inspectors, or half of them are going to be CIA. So like, like sure, I don't begrudge China for saying like, no, you're not allowed in my country. Should they have? Yeah, sure, I think so, but they have the right to say no.
No, 100%.
It sounds like I'm a hardcore China apologist, but I'm, I promise I'm not. But also, Daddy G, I love you.
I just like such claims, man. Like you got to bring it up like with real fucking evidence to have such claims. This just sterilizing 1 million women or some shit like that. Just like, dude, where do you?
Yeah, I think that all just comes back to racism, right? Like it's just so okay to be racist to Chinese people. It's like the xenophobia is just so blatantly like accepted now. It's just like it is what it is. Like it's just okay to be.
But also, like things like mass sterilization are not things that haven't happened to people.
That's sure, yeah, and like that's also fair. Like also, China has done some pretty heinous shit, and like a lot of people have died in China in the past 70 years. So like it's there's what is that the old saying, right? Like lies need to be sprinkled with truths. And like I think that's why this one has caught on so effectively. Again, I'm happy to be proven wrong. If in fact the Uyghur people we're saying it differently. Is it just because?
I'd be happy about that.
I say Uyghur.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe they're Uyghur. I don't know.
I just wanted to double check, but I've always heard it Uyghur. But
I don't know. I think
maybe you're pronouncing it in a more traditional sense. I don't know.
Well, Cenk from the Young Turks. What's his last name?
Cenk Uyghur.
Uyghur.
That's a different spelling.
It's almost the same. It's Turkic. It's Turkic at the same time. Hold up. I want to learn how to say it. It's Uyghur. That's at least what Google says.
Yeah, I've always heard it Uyghur. That's what I'm saying, right? Uyghur.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think people have said Uyghur.
Yeah, I think a lot of like letters in Turkic languages are silent. Like people say Erdogan.
Yeah.
It's actually Erdogan.
Erdogan. Yeah.
Erdogan. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the guy. The guy in the Trump video said Erdogan, and I wanted to say it's pronounced Erdogan, but he wasn't here. It was a video, so I had to shut up.
Yeah, but it's Erdogan because the letter's silent.
Yeah.
So that's why I just figured the Uyghur was
Yeah, he's an
silent.
asshole, isn't he, man? Erdogan.
Yeah. That guy's a psychopath.
Yeah.
Like a Muslim nationalist, Turkish nationalist.
Incredibly bigoted,
wants to
incredibly racist. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Wants to reinstate the fucking Ottoman Empire. I'm like, bro, it's fucking the 21st century. That shit started 700 years ago. Let it go.
Yeah, let it go, dude. So what are you into these days, Faye? I don't know. Let's end on maybe like a positive note. What are you up to?
What am I into?
What do you get up to?
What kind of question is that?
I don't know, man. You take it
just like generally.
You take it however you want to take it. Take the ball, run with it.
Great. Yeah. What do I do these days? I started reading a book.
What you reading?
Which sounds terrible. It's a bell hooks book all about love.
I don't know I don't know any of those words mean. I mean, I know what they all mean independently, but not together.
Great. Well, it's about I mean it's somewhat relevant to what we're talking about. It is about how love should be kind of intertwined with everything that we do, and if we viewed, I mean, it sounds like ooh-wooey when I say it like that. But really it's about love and community and empathy and compassion.
Okay, yeah, no, that sounds like,
and how our society is lacking it.
That sounds like what we were talking about, right? Like that's
totally.
where I think that's where we come from. We come from a place of like what comes off as like this really aggressive like political stance that like condones violence, or at least is like somewhat okay with violence. But like the funny thing is like it does come from that place. Like we're all like weird hippies in the end, because like the reason we're fighting so hard is to just give people like peace and love, and like it's just kind of a very like it's like a very it's this juxtaposition of like, you know, ideas, I think, that like makes Marxism hard to understand.
You gotta be free, man.
Freedom.
I'm also trying to learn how to play the bass.
Yeah. I have some experience in that arena.
Yeah, it's not going well.
No. I try slapping.
Only because I'm not practicing. Yeah, slap at a bass, as they say.
Are these like New Year's resolution type things, or just?
No. I started last year.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm actually getting lessons from a mutual friend of ours.
Cool. How about I don't know.
What was your New Year's resolution?
Yeah, did you have a New Year's resolution?
Yeah, just learn how to take care of myself mostly.
Okay. Let me ask you a question. Where do you get your news from? Like, where do you consume most of your kind of like news, or via which platform, and on that platform, which channels, which accounts?
That's a good question. I mean, specifically, a lot of it is social media, unfortunately. Specifically for like for Palestine, it's from journalists on the ground, of course, on Instagram. But I have been utilizing Means TV. Have you guys heard of Means TV?
Never heard of it.
Okay. Well, I'm glad I brought it up then. I'm actually wearing their shirt right now.
Means?
But
what does it say?
Yeah.
I just see Means at the top.
It says Means Morning News. It's one of their segments that they have.
Did you post about this recently?
I posted myself in this shirt. Yeah.
Okay, that's what it was.
And I've posted clips of theirs on Instagram. But I actually had the website up, which is
Is this a Tucson thing? Is this local, or is this
no? I don't know where they're based, but they say Means TV is the world's first worker-owned anti-capitalist streaming service. So it has a library of films, documentaries, and shows with new programming added all the time, including a daily news show. Okay. All available to subscribers across desktop, mobile, and smart TV devices. No advertisements or product placements, no corporate backers or VC cash ever, entirely funded by the people.
Sounds exactly up our alley. Is it just a monthly payment for it?
Yep.
How much is it a month?
So I don't remember. I subscribed, I think, like a month ago. Sorry, I don't have my glasses on. So monthly subscription is $10 a month.
Okay, I'm gonna check that out.
So
that sounds awesome.
110 for the year. Yeah,
what kind of content do they have on there? It's obviously not like major license stuff.
Is obviously not what?
Like majorly, like you're not going to catch like, you know, the new Marvel show on there or something. Like what kind of like what are we talking about
No.
as far as,
but they have like a lot of interesting. They have a lot of, like it says, like it has like documentaries and films and things like that, stuff that would definitely pique your interest. But they also have original content as well. And like the Means Morning News, it's literally a guy, you know, going over the news.
Sam Sachs is his name.
Yeah, and so that's a lot. That's a lot of the stuff that I repost on. I don't know, because I've posted it in my stories a lot.
It's not very big. You gotta flip it. There you go. It looks like it's a smaller one.
Oh yeah, 6K followers. Yeah.
But I feel like it's picking up because it's. Yeah. I mean, they're doing stuff.
Let's ask this guy if we can we can read his spot. Like let's let him be our advertiser, or rather, let's advertise for him.
If he wants to.
Yeah.
If he wants to.
Maybe I should do another take of reading what their whole thing is.
Sam Sachs. I mean, we'd have to really.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying like we should reach out to him, maybe, because like I don't know, not to sound like super opportunistic, but like we're just trying to like
expand
and have these relationships with people. We're gonna like reach out to the Turn Leftist people because they were pretty open last time. Remember, they were a follower of our Instagram account on the podcast last time, I think, and they liked our posts on the Baby Leftist podcast we did. I don't think I mentioned.
Who are we talking about?
The Turn Leftist guys.
Yeah.
I
Mike
from Turn Leftist. He was like he liked our posts and stuff on the old Baby Leftist podcast.
I've never watched them, to be honest with you.
Oh, they're great, man. The Turn Leftist guys are awesome. The Turn Leftist podcast kind of went on a hiatus, but they do like other live. They do like a bunch of other stuff on their channels. They don't like the actual like episode, although they just released an episode as I say that, like, but they hadn't released an episode in like a year and a half.
Oh wow!
I was on their Discord for a while, but I didn't do anything.
I'm still on it, but again, I don't do anything. But yeah,
I gotta get out of here.
Yeah, it's just noise.
Yeah, mostly, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, Means TV, it's great.
Okay, cool. A lot of this I gotta say is probably gonna cut down because we've just kind of been like.
That's fine.
Not talking a whole lot, but I want to keep the Means TV stuff in.
Like I said, well, yeah. I wish I could read it again because I stumbled over it, but that.
I mean, it's not an actual ad read. It's fine.
It's fine. I know, it's fine.
Yeah, but I mean, like, we've said Means Morning News so many goddamn times at this point that, like, yeah.
The
Means Morning News, Means TV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll check them out. That sounds cool. I mean, I know, like, Ray Bear also did, like, his own, like, podcast and, like, stream, and he was in our last live stream, like, really participating. It was a lot of fun. Like, yeah, Ray's a big #1 fan. Shout out to Ray. Like, yeah,
wow.
But he had Tarantula's Dream.
Ray.
Remember Tarantula's Dream TV? It was like his.
Yeah.
He had, it was
Is
like
that what that was?
Yeah, it was like a radio show essentially.
Oh,
it was cool.
Sorry, Ray, I never listened to it.
I did. I listened a couple times. It was cool. I think at the time I didn't understand it and like wasn't really like sure what it was about or whatever. But like he's been kind of he was in our live stream in the chat on Twitch. He was in our Twitch chat, like really participating as we watched the original Republican debate. It was a lot of fun.
But you haven't had him on though. You should have him on.
No, we actually. I'm such an idiot. Why haven't I asked him to be on, man? Let's do that.
No, I don't know.
Yeah,
I saw him somewhat recently in passing.
He's another Tucson guy. He's very cool. It's the guy who was Tarantula's Dream on Twitch.
Yeah,
he's a really cool guy. He had his own show in Tucson. He's a cool Tucson leftist guy, musician, artist, cool guy.
Let's bring him on. That'd be great.
Nice guy. I haven't spoken to him in a long time.
Yeah, he'd have a lot to say, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Don't we all?
Don't we all? Well, I don't know, man. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
I don't know. I think we should wrap it up.
You want to wrap it up?
Wrap it up, yeah.
Got an hour and a half in.
I guess just a reminder to anyone who's listening to keep talking about it, keep showing up for Palestinians and people in Sudan and the Congo and people in your community.
Yeah, and
it's also very important.
We're going to end as we always end, or as we almost always end, which is like, yeah, go out, get involved. I think we've said a couple times that, a day of mutual aid is worth more than voting ever will. So get out there, get involved in your community, find out who's doing what. Join CP, join PSL, join SRA, join DSA if it's all you got. There's plenty of mutual aid action groups. Food Not Bombs is probably operating in your city. They're an anarchist group, but we love them anyway. They're probably somewhere in your neighborhood helping out, doing some good work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Getting out there and physically doing something makes you feel a lot better as a human being than just putting a circle on paper. Yeah,
and literally just engaging with your community. It's good for the community, obviously, but also just as an individual, it helps you grow and evolve.
Yeah, I just had my first shift with Lake City Lifeline, which is a mutual aid group in Seattle. I worked with them over the summer, but then I went and started working in South Central Seattle with a different group. Now I went back to working in this group, and I had my shift with them Saturday. It was a lot of fun to get out there in the community, talk to these unhoused people, and just we were delivering food and supplies and harm reduction. Yeah, that's under the Houseless Commission that I'm on. But that group in particular, they do a lot of harm reduction stuff, like different kind of like sanitary aid, and then a lot of food and drinks and stuff. So we were going out. It's mobile too. I worked with them last time, and they kind of restructured. It used to be stationary. They worked out of a church in East Seattle and Lake City, Seattle. and it was kind of like a walk-up window. They'd come up and place an order, and we were all in the back of this church like making orders and stuff. So it was kind of like a restaurant style almost. So you'd have the whole community kind of coming out to the front of the street, and it was you'd go out there and kind of have a cigarette with them, whatever, and just chat with the community. And that was cool to have them come to you. But now it's a mobile service, so we go out to all of the different encampments and kind of like check in on how they're doing at their home, like where they're living, where they're staying. And that's been actually, I think, a lot better because you get to kind of like hang out with them, and they'll come out of their tent or RV and just kind of chat with you for a while. You get to pet their dogs, and it's just been a lot of fun. So you kind of go walking around, then you'll go back to your car, you'll drive to the next like block up, go walk around the different encampments, go drive up to the next, and you just kind of continue on for a few hours until you're out of food, basically. It's a lot of fun. So go do that. Go fucking do that, man. I know Food Not Bombs in Tucson specifically, I do know a little bit about because I used to work with them a little bit. I know they do like cool meal services. They're always needing more bike delivery people because going back to Tucson, just being obsessed with cycling. The Food Not Bombs always need more cyclist delivery guys, so they'll go deliver their foods. They make vegan breakfast burritos, I think, and they'll go deliver those via bike. So if you're in the Tucson area, which like demographics, like 50% or more of our listeners are in Tucson, just fucking go volunteer for Food Not Bombs. I know you, and I know who you are, and you know me, so I'm telling you specifically, go get involved with Food Not Bombs.
Use this as an opportunity for cardio. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Get your cardio in and do some good stuff. Do some good work.
Well, all right, that's enough soapboxing, or what do you call it? Yeah, soapboxing. You ready to wrap it up?
Sure. Follow us on Twitter. Was it RevolutionaryRhetoricPod? Instagram, I think. I'll put it all the descriptions.
Twitter's the one thing I don't fuck with. I think it's RevolutionaryRhetoricPod.
Yeah, RevolutionaryRhetoricPod. I'm on that thing constantly, just fucking retweeting shit.
Okay.
But yeah, all the links will be in the description below. We finally have like this nice confined package of we could just put it in the description. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Don't forget to subscribe, share, like, comment.
Do all the YouTube bullshit.
Yeah,
follow us on Instagram. Kanan runs the Twitter. I run the Instagram. You're actually also running the Instagram now. Thanks for that.
Occasionally,
I'm better. I'm better at it now. That was my New Year's resolution, is to be better at our Instagram, and I'm getting there. I posted something.
Follow me on Twitter.
Yeah. Faye, do you have anything you want to plug? Do you want your personal Instagram account plugged or no? It's okay if you don't.
It's private, so you can try to add me if you want to, but it's Lolcat Goldthwait.
So if you know who Bobcat Goldthwait is and what a lolcat is,
and
mash him up.
And you lived through the lolcat era.
Yeah, you'll figure it out. All right, cool. Well, thanks everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.